In the frost-laden landscapes of Scandinavia, where winter nights stretch long and dark and ancient farmsteads nestle between forests and fjords, there dwell creatures both revered and feared. They stand no taller than a child, yet command respect from the mightiest farmer. They can bestow prosperity upon a household or bring it to ruin with equal ease. These are the Nisser, enigmatic guardian spirits of Scandinavian folklore. And today, we journey deep into the heart of Nordic tradition to understand these fascinating beings. Before we begin, a note on terminology. The word Nisse refers to a single individual spirit, while Nisser is the plural form referring to multiple spirits. Throughout this exploration, we will use both terms, speaking of a Nisse when discussing an individual guardian, and Nisser when referring to the race as a whole or to multiple individuals. Nisser exist as a race of supernatural beings distinct from the gods of the Norse pantheon, yet deeply woven into Scandinavian folk belief. Unlike the Ezer or Vanir, Nisser belong to a category of spirits known as Vatter, supernatural entities inhabiting specific locations and forming bonds with particular places and families. Each farm hosts its own individual Nisse, creating a widespread population of these spirits across the Scandinavian countryside. The question of how Nisser first come into existence reveals the complexity of folk tradition. According to widespread belief, a Nisse represents the spirit of the first person to clear and establish a particular farm. When this original settler dies, his essence transforms into a protective spirit bound eternally to the property. Alternative traditions suggest a Nisse manifests spontaneously when a farm reaches a certain age, or that Nisser simply exist as a separate race who choose to attach themselves to human dwellings. A typical Nisse stands no taller than a 4-year-old child, though his body possesses the proportions and strength of several fully grown men. The most distinctive feature remains the red pointed cap each invariably wears. This cap functions as a source of supernatural power. Nisser dress in gray woolen clothes, knee breeches, and wooden clogs. Each Nisse's weathered face bears a long white or gray beard. While all Nisser share these core characteristics, each individual possesses his own distinct personality, preferences, and quirks. One farm's Nisse might prove relatively even-tempered, while a neighboring farm's Nisse might display fierce volatility, requiring each farming family to learn the specific preferences of their own guardian spirit. Understanding what makes Nisser unique requires distinguishing them from other small supernatural beings in European folklore. While they share superficial similarities with gnomes and fairies, Nisser represent a distinctly different type of entity. Gnomes, originating from Germanic folklore and alchemical traditions, exist primarily as earth elementals, dwelling underground in mines and caves, guarding treasures and minerals. Their relationship with humans remains distant and centered on mining rather than agricultural partnership. Fairies, found predominantly in Celtic and British folklore, inhabit the otherworld, a separate magical realm, and dwell in fairy mounds, ancient forests, and wild places rather than domestic settings. The Nisse, by contrast, exists as a thoroughly domestic spirit with practical agricultural concerns. He lives in the barn or beneath the house, directly within the spaces humans inhabit. His purpose centers entirely on farm prosperity through protecting livestock, ensuring good harvests, and performing nighttime labor. The Nisse forms a symbiotic partnership with his specific family, expecting clear and reasonable treatment, proper offerings, respect for tradition, and good stewardship. Most significantly, the Nisse's loyalty to a specific place sets him apart. Gnomes guard underground treasures independently of human activity. Fairies pursue their own mysterious purposes. But each Nisse bonds permanently with one particular farm, investing himself emotionally in its success across generations. Nisser command a range of supernatural abilities that make them both valuable allies and dangerous adversaries. The primary power each Nisse possesses manifests in his capacity to influence the prosperity of his chosen farm. When pleased, a Nisse works tirelessly during night hours, completing unfinished tasks, grooming horses, mending equipment, carrying hay to livestock, and ensuring grain stores remain full even in lean years. According to folklore documented in Benjamin Thorpe's Northern Mythology, 1851, Nisser possessed the ability to steal from neighboring farms to benefit their own households. A Nisse might transfer hay bundle by bundle or lead the neighbor's cattle to drink at his own farm's well, gradually weakening neighboring livestock while strengthening his own. This ability to redistribute fortune explains why some farms prosper while others decline despite similar labor. Each Nisse exercises control over animals, particularly horses, which these spirits favor above all farm creatures. A horse favored by a particular Nisse becomes strong, healthy, and spirited, while one he disfavors grows weak and sickly regardless of care. Shape-shifting abilities allow Nisser to alter their appearances at will, becoming invisible, shrinking to the size of an insect, or enlarging to human proportions. Some accounts describe Nisser transforming into cats, rats, or birds to move undetected or frighten offenders. Individual Nisser also possess knowledge of hidden treasures buried on their properties and can reveal locations to worthy family members. Each Nisse understands the secret histories of his land, knowing where previous inhabitants placed boundary markers, where wells once flowed, and where the soil grows most fertile. The personality of Nisser emerges as complex and contradictory. Most Nisser demonstrate fierce loyalty to their farms and proper inhabitants, yet their tempers flare with terrifying swiftness when offended. They value hard work, orderliness, and traditional methods, showing contempt for laziness and any perceived disrespect. Nisser expect specific treatment in exchange for their protection and labor. Most importantly, each Nisse demands his traditional offering of Christmas porridge, a bowl of rich rice or grain porridge topped with a generous pat of butter, delivered on Christmas Eve without fail in the barn or hayloft. One widely told legend illustrates the consequences of failing to provide proper porridge. A farm wife decides to save butter by hiding it at the bottom of her Nisse's bowl beneath the grain. The Nisse, discovering this deception, becomes so enraged that he kills the farm's best cow in revenge. Only upon reaching the bottom does he find the butter and realize his mistake. Overcome with remorse, he steals the neighbor's best cow to replace the one he killed. This tale appears in J.M. Thiel's Danmarks Folkesang, 1843, with regional variations across Scandinavia. Nisser maintains strict standards for farm management. A Nisse becomes angry when tools are left dirty, animals receive poor treatment, or when family members speak ill of the farm. When mildly displeased, a Nisse tangles horses' manes, hides tools, or causes milk to sour. When seriously offended, his actions become dangerous, causing accidents, sickening livestock, spoiling harvests, or even attacking humans directly. Despite their volatile natures, Nisser also display genuine affection. A Nisse grows attached to families who treat him well, protecting children from harm, warning of danger, and mourning when beloved family members die. Beyond the porridge legend, numerous tales illustrate the character and powers of individual Nisser. One famous story tells of a farmhand who refuses to believe in his farm's Nisse despite warnings. On Christmas Eve, he deliberately eats the porridge intended for the Nisse, mocking the tradition. That night, the Nisse appears and beats him severely. The farmhand never again questions the Nisse's existence. Some legends portray Nisser as capable of love and loneliness. One story tells of a Nisse who becomes enamored with a young farm girl, leaving her small gifts. When she marries and moves away, the Nisse falls into such deep melancholy that the farm begins to fail. Only when the girl returns and leaves the Nisse a special bowl of porridge does prosperity return. Another legend demonstrates a Nisse's sense of justice. A wealthy farmer employs a cruel overseer who beats servants and works animals mercilessly. The Nisse begins tormenting the overseer. When the overseer refuses to change, the Nisse causes a beam to fall, crushing the man's hand and forcing him to leave. A particularly interesting legend tells of two neighboring farms, each with its own Nisse. The farmers maintain friendly relations, but their Nisser develop a fierce rivalry. The conflict intensifies until both farms suffer from the supernatural feud. Finally, the two farmers jointly prepare an enormous feast of porridge, inviting both Nisser to dine together. The shared meal reconciles the rival spirits, and both farms prosper thereafter. Each Nisse claims specific locations on his farm as his particular domain. Most commonly, a Nisse dwells in the barn, in the hayloft, or near the horses. Some Nisser prefer grain storage areas, while others inhabit the crawlspace or cellar beneath the house. These dwelling places remain each Nisse's private territory, and humans who intrude without good reason risk his anger. A Nisse moves freely throughout his farm property during nighttime hours, inspecting fields, checking animals, and performing his mysterious work. He can pass through walls and locked doors, making no location inaccessible. However, individual Nisse rarely venture beyond their farm's traditional boundaries. Certain areas hold special significance. The hearth commands his respect. He often receives offerings near the hearth or in the kitchen. The threshold carries importance, and a Nisse may station himself there to guard against harmful spirits or unwelcome visitors. Wells, springs, and water sources fall under each Nisse's watchful eye. He ensures these remain clean and flowing, and takes offense if humans pollute or neglect them. The boundary between properties marks important territorial limits. While a Nisse may venture onto neighboring land to steal resources for his own farm, he recognizes these boundaries and understands when he crosses into another Nisse's domain. Nisser exist within a broader ecosystem of Scandinavian supernatural entities. Individual Nisser maintain generally peaceful relations with other household spirits who might inhabit the same farm, though territorial disputes can arise if boundaries become unclear. Nisser distinguish themselves from the Tomte, though the terms are often used interchangeably in modern times. Historically, the Tomte more specifically refers to the spirit of the burial mound on which a farm stands, while the Nisse represents the broader household guardian. However, many scholars consider them regional names for the same type of being. Nisser show hostility toward malevolent spirits who might threaten their farms. A Nisse drives away trolls, keeps out harmful forest spirits, and protects his household from curses or magical attacks. Interestingly, folklore suggests that Nisser from neighboring farms sometimes meet and socialize, gathering in forests or at crossroads during certain times of the year. These meetings involve Nisser sharing information, settling property disputes, or engaging in competitions of strength and magical ability. However, individual Nisser keep these gatherings secret from humans, and those who stumble on such meetings face the Nisser's wrath for intruding. Some legends describe hierarchies among Nisser, suggesting that older or more powerful individuals command respect from younger or weaker ones. The existence of social meetings and territorial understandings implies some level of organization or shared culture among these beings. Unlike many mythological figures, most individual Nisser appear as solitary beings without wives or children. Each Nisse's existence centers entirely on his relationship with his farm and its inhabitants, leaving little room for family life of his own. This solitary nature contributes to the occasional loneliness individual Nisser display. However, some regional variations describe female Nisser, called Nissekone or Nissekvinne, who inhabit farms alongside male Nisser. These female spirits fulfill similar protective roles, but may focus more on the house itself rather than the barn and animals. The relationship between male and female Nisser remains ambiguous. Sometimes they appear as married couples, other times as independent spirits with distinct domains. Rare legends mention young Nisser or Nisse children, suggesting these beings might reproduce, though such accounts remain exceptional. The rarity of these stories raises questions about how the race of Nisser maintains its population, whether through reproduction, transformation of human spirits, or some other supernatural process. Some traditions suggest that when a farm is first established, a Nisse might migrate from elsewhere to take up residence. Other stories describe Nisser as intrinsically bound to their properties from the moment of the farm's founding. Each Nisse's true family becomes the farm household itself. He invests himself emotionally in the family's welfare, celebrating their successes and mourning their losses. He knows each generation, watching children grow into adults and become the new farm masters. This continuity gives individual Nisser perspective that individual humans lack. The activities and visibility of Nisser vary throughout the year, with certain seasons holding particular significance. Winter, especially the Christmas season, represents the peak of Nisse activity and human-Nisse interaction. The Christmas porridge offering marks the most important ritual in the annual cycle of Nisse relations. During spring and summer, when farm work intensifies, each Nisse busies himself ensuring successful planting, growth, and harvest. Nisser influence weather patterns within their farms, creating microclimates that protect crops from frost or excessive heat. A farm blessed by a happy Nisse might escape a devastating hailstorm that ruins neighboring properties. Harvest time proves critical in each Nisse's calendar. Individual Nisser take pride in abundant yields and grow melancholic when harvests fail. Traditionally, farmers leave the last sheaf of grain in the field as an offering to their Nisse and other land spirits. Nisser demonstrate particular sensitivity during transitional periods. Dawn and dusk, the changing of seasons, and threshold moments in farm life such as births, deaths, marriages, and the transfer of property from one generation to the next. During these liminal times, individual Nisser become more visible and active. Living harmoniously with a Nisse requires understanding and respecting numerous unspoken rules. Violating these taboos invites the wrath of individual Nisser and the misfortune they can bring. Never whistle in the barn, as this sound irritates most Nisser intensely. Never urinate in the barn or other areas a Nisse frequents. Such disrespect guarantees retaliation. Never speak ill of the farm or express wishes to leave it within a Nisse's hearing. Maintain traditional farming methods and schedules. Nisser distrust innovation and change, preferring the ways that proved successful across generations. However, respectful farmers can sometimes gain acceptance of necessary changes by explaining the reasons and maintaining core traditions. Never attempt to see a Nisse unless he chooses to reveal himself. Those who spy on their Nisse or try to catch him in his nighttime work find themselves subject to frightening pranks or worse. Treat all farm animals with kindness and respect, as they fall under each Nisse's special protection. Cruelty to animals represents one of the gravest offenses in any Nisse's moral code. Honor the farm's history and the previous generations who worked the land. Nisser maintain loyalty to these ancestors, and disrespecting their memory angers these spirits deeply. Never move a Nisse's porridge bowl before he has finished eating, and never attempt to take back an offering once given. Never boast about your Nisse or claim his assistance comes from your own virtue. Nisser despise pride and will punish those who take their aid for granted. The presence of Nisser in Scandinavian culture faces challenges when farms undergo fundamental changes. When a farm is abandoned, its Nisse faces a crisis. His purpose dissolves, yet his bond to the land remains. Some legends describe Nisser of abandoned farms as tragic figures, wandering the ruins of barns and houses, calling out for inhabitants who will never return. The fate of these displaced Nisser remains uncertain, whether they eventually fade away, migrate to new farms, or persist indefinitely as melancholy guardians of empty land. When new owners purchase old farms without understanding or respecting the Nisse tradition, conflicts arise. A Nisse may attempt to drive away these newcomers, viewing them as invaders rather than proper inheritors of his domain. Alternatively, he might withdraw his protection and labor, allowing the farm to decline. Some stories tell of Nisser who eventually accept new families if they demonstrate proper care for the land and animals, even without understanding the supernatural cause of their initial misfortunes. Modernization of farming practices disrupts traditional Nisse relationships. When horses are replaced by tractors, when old barns are demolished for new structures, when traditional methods give way to modern agricultural science, individual Nisser struggle to adapt. Some folklore suggests that Nisser can adjust to change if treated with respect, and if some traditional elements remain, perhaps keeping one horse even when using primarily machinery, or maintaining an old barn alongside new buildings. The question of whether new Nisser still come into being, or whether the race of Nisser slowly diminishes as traditional farms disappear, remains unanswered. The folklore developed during times when farming represented the dominant way of life, and it does not clearly address the fate of Nisser in an industrialized world. While Nisser maintain consistent core characteristics throughout Scandinavia, regional variations add complexity to the tradition and suggest diversity within the race itself. Norwegian Nisser, called tus, often appear more temperamental and quicker to anger than their Danish counterparts. Swedish Tomtar share most traits with Nisser, but sometimes receive association with specific rooms in the house, rather than focusing primarily on the barn. In some regions, Nisser possess greater magical abilities, including power over fire, capacity to influence human thoughts through dreams, or even ability to alter time's passage within their domains. Other traditions present more limited Nisser whose powers extend only to physical labor and basic good or bad fortune. Certain areas describe Nisser as having religious beliefs or spiritual practices of their own. Some accounts suggest Nisser attend church services invisibly on Christmas Eve, while others portray them as beings existing outside human religious categories entirely. The relationship between Nisser and Christianity varies regionally. Some traditions hold that Nisser fear or dislike Christian symbols and prayers, being creatures of older beliefs who resist the new religion. Other stories describe Nisser who respect Christianity and even assist in maintaining churches or protecting clergy, suggesting accommodation between old and new spiritual systems. In coastal regions, some traditions describe Nisser associated with fishing boats and maritime activities rather than farms, suggesting the race adapted to different forms of human labor. These maritime Nisser fulfill similar protective and prosperity-bringing roles, but focus on ensuring good catches and safe voyages, rather than agricultural abundance. The folklore provides tantalizing glimpses into the social world of Nisser beyond their relationships with humans. Legends of Nisser meeting in forests or at crossroads suggest a rich social life that humans rarely witness. These gatherings appear to serve multiple purposes: social bonding, information exchange, dispute resolution, and perhaps even courtship, if female Nisser exist in significant numbers. Stories of rival Nisser from neighboring farms competing to bring prosperity to their respective properties suggest that individual Nisser maintain awareness of each other's activities and measure their success against their peers. This competition drives some of the stealing behavior documented in folklore, not merely practical resource acquisition, but also a form of status competition among Nisser. The fact that conflicts between Nisser can sometimes be resolved through joint offerings from their human families suggests that Nisser value peace and cooperation despite their rivalries. The feast that reconciles two feuding Nisser indicates that shared meals and hospitality carry significance in Nisse culture, just as they do in human society. Whether hierarchies exist among Nisser, whether some are considered elders or leaders, and whether formal rules govern their interactions, remain matters of speculation. The territorial boundaries they respect and the social gatherings they attend suggest some level of organization, but the details remain hidden from human observation. Nisser endure in Scandinavian tradition as more than mere folklore. They represent the embodied relationship between people and place, the acknowledgement that land and buildings possess their own character and memory. In the figure of the Nisse, agricultural communities found explanation for the inexplicable variations in fortune that no amount of hard work could guarantee, and they found a way to express the deep attachments binding families to ancestral farms across generations. The small stature of these beings belies their enormous significance, and their volatile temperaments reflect the precarious nature of farming itself. Prosperity and ruin separated by weather, disease, accident, or mysterious fortune. The porridge offered each Christmas Eve represents more than superstition. It embodies recognition that success requires forces beyond human control, and that showing gratitude and respect for one's home and land brings returns that pure labor cannot achieve alone. Through all the legends of Nisser, the stolen porridge, the beaten farmhand, the rival Nisser feasting together, runs a consistent truth about the mutual obligations binding inhabitants to their land, and about the respect traditional wisdom deserves even in changing times. The race of Nisser represents a profound recognition in Scandinavian culture that places have power, that tradition carries weight, and that the relationship between people and land transcends simple ownership or economic utility. Each individual Nisse, with his particular personality and specific bond to a particular place, reminds us that abstract concepts of home, belonging, and stewardship take real form in the daily interactions between people and the places they inhabit. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the Nisser of Scandinavian folklore. If you found this journey into Nordic tradition valuable, please share it with others who appreciate these ancient beliefs. Join us again as we continue uncovering the hidden spirits, forgotten gods, and timeless legends of the North.